Welcome to Being Intrepid, where we share practical insights from leaders who are shaping the future of talent and learning. I'm your host, Sam Herring. Over the past couple of decades, I've built some companies that have helped people learn and organizations grow. Today, I'm joined by Dani Johnson, co-founder and principal analyst at RedThread Research. RedThread connects people, ideas, data, and stories to provide leaders with an accessible, affordable community that empowers organizations to make better decisions faster. Dani's career spans industry, academia, and consulting. It includes stints at really emblematic companies like Ford, organizations like University of Michigan, and Deloitte. Before she launched RedThread Research with her co-founder, Stacia Garr, in 2018. I've known Dani for many years, and in my experience, she stands out as the most trusted analyst researching the human capital space because of her independence, her intelligence, and her rigorous research. Her research and insights are highly respected by both enterprises and technology companies alike. So, Dani, I'm thrilled to welcome you to Being Intrepid.
Thank you. That was quite the intro. I hope I live up to it.
Well, in my experience, Dani, you do. So, and if you haven't checked out Dani's research, by the way, I really commend it to you. She's very thoughtful in how she and her partners frame challenges, listen to communities, and really dive deep in a very thoughtful way. So, anyway, the red thread promotion aside, it really comes from a genuine place for me. Dani, looking back on your career, what were some of the key influences that led you to become a research analyst? You had these experiences in industry. What led you to really focus as a research analyst?
Yeah. So I actually started out as an engineer at Ford Motor Company. I was working in their product development
Mm,
space and I loved it. I really did love it. At the time, I was also uh, connected with a couple of researchers at the University of Michigan, a couple of
mm,
professors that were teaching executive ed.
mm,
And they said, "Hey, we see potential in you, kid. Come on over and, spend a day with us and see what you think." And
uh,
so I did. I spent a couple of days with them and saw what they did. And it kind of changed my mindset around what actually matters in organizations. So being an engineer, it's all about, and an MBA, it's all about money makes the world go round and
yeah.
good products and things like that. But spending the day with Dave Ulrich and Wayne Brockbank really sort of reset that for me. And I understood the importance of people and people structures. And I was sold. So I jumped off the top of my career and started being a researcher, and I haven't looked back.
Yeah, fascinating. And then so you built your career working at Deloitte, in research as well. And then what inspired you and Stacia to start Red Thread on your own?
Yeah. We were happily working in a way at a little part of Deloitte called Burson by Deloitte at the time.
Mhm.
And I wanted to try something new. And so I was kind of interviewing with a couple of bigger sort of VC and PE
Mm.
firms kind of in that space. And I called Stacia one day and said, "Hey, Stacia, uh, I'm going to leave. So good luck with everything." She was on maternity leave at the time.
Mm.
Like, "Good luck. Have a good
Where are
life,
you
whatever."
going? Where are you going?
And she said, like, literally in all in one breath, "I've always wanted to start my own firm, but I haven't wanted to do it by myself." And I was like, "Okay, that's interesting." And so we spent about a week deciding what kind of risk we were willing to take on, and
Yeah, yeah.
and decided that if we didn't try it now, we probably weren't going to get the chance in our lives. And so we did. We jumped and did it, and it's
Love
been
that.
the best decision of my life.
Love that. Love that. Okay, well, we're gonna unpack what you and Stacia focus on at Red Thread. Let's start with the L&D market. You've come out with some pretty strong perspectives, which are valued. How would you describe the state of the L&D market today?
Yeah. So the way that I'm just describing it right now is big, fast, and loud. It is
Hmm.
bigger than I've ever seen it. I followed this space for probably 10 years now, and there are more vendors playing in this space than I've ever seen, and more sort of crossover vendors as well. People that didn't used to play in L&D are now playing in L&D, and so it's really big. It's changing really fast. New entrants being acquired, entrants leaving based on what's going on in the space, and then loud.
Hmm.
Everybody is saying stuff. I don't know if you attend many conferences, Sam. I think that's the last time
Hmm.
I saw you was at a
Hmm.
conference.
That's right.
Um, but everyone is shouting loudly, trying to get the attention of these buyers, and it's just big, fast, and loud. That's how I would describe it.
Yeah, and you mentioned kind of overlapping that there's the message is also not only loud and amplified, but sounding the same
Yeah.
and difficult to parse. So why do you think that is? Why do you think there's this
Yeah.
convergence?
I think for a really long time, learning was understood. Employee development was understood, right? Like
Mhm.
we're doing the same sorts of things. And in the last 10 or 15 years, we've seen all kinds of new ideas come in. So whereas coaching used to be a thing just for leadership development, now coaching is a thing that is part of learning, and we've found ways to scale that and stuff
Mhm.
like that. We're seeing
Mhm.
uh, it is much easier for organizations now to quantify the learning that used to only be
Mhm.
quantified in LMSs and things like that. And so as we've sort of moved away from the traditional ways of doing things, more
Mhm.
opportunities have opened up, and that is great. But it's really difficult to sell some of those things the way that we traditionally have sold things. Like, hey, we create
Yeah.
the best courses in the land.
Yeah.
That's what it used to be, and it was easy to say those things. And now it's so loud because the types of things that we're talking about are fairly nuanced, and in many cases
Yeah.
have specific use cases. And
Yeah.
so just trying to get your voice heard among everything that's going on right now is the thing. And as we've talked to vendors, it's also really interesting. You know this as a vendor. Um, Keywords are key. You know what I mean? So the
Yeah.
last couple of
Good
years,
point.
that
Good point. Yep.
having AI on everything that you put out is
Yeah.
really important,
Yeah.
because people that are buying have remits. They have to go there. Skills is another one that is just continually popped up as one of those big things. And so when you have these little tiny nuances that make each one individually different, and then you have these big overarching themes that also have to be in the space, it just gets loud, super loud.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good point about it being the messaging branding being so keyword driven now, which is kind of
Ah,
forcing this convergence of
for
message
sure. Yeah,
in a crazy, unhelpful way. So,
agreed.
okay, let's talk about the buy side. Your research has also shown that L&D's influence within the organizations they
Yeah,
serve has waned pretty dramatically over the last few years, post-COVID, or
yeah.
I guess sort of tail end of COVID. So, why is that?
It's so interesting that you mentioned this. I've said that because it was kind of qualitative. This is what I'm hearing in the space. We did some research about a year and a half ago that confirmed that.
Mhm.
So L&D's involvement in things like workforce planning or strategic discussions halved in the course of
Mm,
2 years. So it
mm,
used to be around 50%, and it's halved to about 25%. And I think that's for a couple of reasons. The first reason is we sort of bungled it during the pandemic. I hate to
mhm,
say
mhm,
that, but
mhm,
during the pandemic, we had this great opportunity to be like, yeah, let's step into this light and let's figure out how to get these people trained to do new things that they've never done before. And we
mhm,
need to do it fast and at scale and all those types of things. And
mhm.
the biggest question that I got during that time was, how do I get all my in-person training online? Which
Yeah,
is the wrong question. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
so in a situation where we really could have had a big influence and increase our influence,
Mhm.
we bungled it. So that's the first thing. The second thing uh, is AI, and I hate to just blame it all on AI because that's what
Mhm.
everyone's doing.
Mhm.
But seriously, when we look at the tech space, a lot of the traditional things that L&D has done, the doing types of things that we've needed to do, can now be done fairly easily by AI.
Mhm.
Um, there are tools everywhere, and so if all of those things can now be done by AI, and leaders know that things can be done by AI, then it's getting increasingly more difficult for L&D to make a case for themselves if they're not actually having impact on the organization. If they're just doing the things that we've always done, it's
Yeah,
really hard to show impact. If I can now crack open ChatGPT and have a conversation about, how I become a better manager to my people, it's difficult to make that sell. And so right now things are decreasing. I don't think it will stay that way. I think there are things
yeah.
that L&D should be doing in order to ensure that it doesn't. But right now that's why I think that we are where we are.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there was this phrase that came out early in the pandemic of lift and shift that
Yeah.
was just sent shivers down my spine. And I remember the metrics that some learning leaders were talking about. It was like how fast they could move, an ILT to a VILT was like the metric of success. It's like, anyway, it was
Yeah.
so that's interesting. And yeah, we're going to talk a lot about AI. So thank you for teeing that up. So I want to push on a couple of points of maybe conventional wisdom and go a next level deeper on some of the things that phrases that I hear or themes that I hear in the L&D space that seem to be talked about at a fairly superficial level. So one area is around learning in the flow of work for training. This makes a ton of sense for so many scenarios. Applying and practicing skills in the moment, seeking solutions to new challenges, and of course, you know, these are not new ideas. We have our friends Bob Mosher and Conrad to thank for their work, in this area for decades. Um, Yet there are other learning scenarios that require deep, complex skill building through developing, practicing, mastering human skills and technical skills that don't fit this paradigm. So it just feels like we've over-indexed on this learning in the flow. So how do you? I mean, first of all, like I'd love your thoughts on that. But how should learning leaders think beyond sound bites? That's the bigger question to managing a learning portfolio. How do they think across the different learning scenarios thoughtfully?
Um, could you maybe reframe that, Sam? Sorry,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah, sure. So, okay, so there's learning in the flow's got a lot of oxygen in the room, right?
yeah.
And yet, and we know there's great use cases for that. But there, on the other end of the spectrum, we've got deep, complex technical and human skill
Okay.
building. So, for a learning leader, how should they manage their portfolio of learning so that they are thinking about both in the flow, like the AI examples you gave, as well as the things that really require the complex, deeper skill building.
Yeah, I mean, that is such a loaded question, right? Because it depends on so many variables. It depends on
Yep,
your remit as an L&D department.
yep,
It depends on the KPIs that you're trying to move. It depends on all those things. So I guess the best advice that I would have would be to understand what those things are,
yep,
understand what your remit is, and case studies and KPIs that you're trying to move and all that stuff, and then choose accordingly.
yep,
Right now, we seem to be in a space where the world is focused on efficiency, and I think that's
yep,
for two
yep.
reasons. Basically one big reason, and that is that AI has shown us that things can be done more efficiently, and
Hmm.
so that tends to be where a lot of L&D is focused right now. Is how do we make these people more efficient where they are
Yep,
right now, and
yep,
that is fine for short term.
yep,
And in those cases, you should be looking for, AI and personalized work and in the flow and all that kind of stuff. The
yep.
thing that kind of scares me about where we are, though, and I'm hoping that we pull out of it, is that second part that you mentioned. It is important to make sure that people can make those connections and see just a little bit around the corner and think critically and all of the
Mhm.
things that we learn from liberal arts degrees, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
That is a really important thing, and it's particularly important once you become a leader of any sort, right?
Hmm.
Um, and so right now we're in this efficiency phase, and we're trying to figure out what Ellen or AI can help us do. I'm worried that if we don't actually make room for that other stuff and allow people to
Right.
struggle and figure things out and make those connections, then we're not going to have leaders for the next generation. So I do think it's important.
Yeah,
And I think it's really important to focus on those skills to some extent for everybody, not just for your
yeah,
first level managers or supervisors, but
yep,
just across the board, those need to be built. Failure is a
yep.
part of learning.
Yeah, yeah. What jumps to mind too is some of the work like the book The Skill Code. Just the work that needs to happen for the messy work people need to do to build those deep skills. And if they don't have that opportunity, if they jump straight to the answer, they don't build the foundational knowledge to and the scaffolding they need to think and learn and develop more complex skills too, which is kind of maybe an adjacent worry to what you're
It's a
describing too.
huge worry. Like I know organizations are currently thinking, okay, well, if all of the entry level work is now done by
Yeah,
a robot, then how do I train my people to be up to the level that we need them to be at for the work that they can actually do now? It is a
right.
gigantic thing right now.
Right, right. You mentioned personalized too,
Yeah.
personalized learning. So the other side of it, I guess, is team-based learning. So the hyper we live in a world of hyper personalization, of course, not just learning, but our news and all kinds of things. That we're personalizing for ourselves. So in your research, not to pit personalization and team-based learning against each other. They could be connected beautifully, but how do you see organizations kind of connecting personalization and team-based learning at the same time? I know this is something you've looked at.
Yeah. We don't. The short
Oh,
answer is
okay,
we don't see
okay,
that very much.
okay,
Um,
okay, got it.
most of this stuff is about fixing the person, not fixing the systems in which we learn.
Hmm.
Uh, which I think is an oversight. I'm a systems thinker by nature, and so
Yeah,
when we go into something, we're always looking at, okay, how do you fix the system, not the person, because the
yeah,
person could be temporary, but the system could endure longer.
yes.
Um, the places where we kind of see it are really good managers that
Hmm.
understand that it's not that each individual person have all the skills and developing all the skills for each individual
Hmm.
person, but they're
Hmm.
looking at the portfolio of skills that the team has and
Hmm.
determining where to build the on the
Yeah,
strengths of the people within those teams.
yeah,
And again, that is a skill that managers often don't have, but in places where we do see it, it's part of the culture and part of the expectation of that manager to make sure that that stuff happens.
yeah, yeah. Fascinating. Awesome. Well, thanks for indulging in a few diving in, beyond the surface on a couple themes there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about your current research. And we were chatting about
Okay.
this just before we got on the pod. So you're currently focusing on L&D structures, and
Yeah.
I know this was really teed up by your members
Yeah.
and you're member driven, obviously, with your research agenda, which is awesome. So why is that important to your members, and why now?
Yeah, it's really interesting. It actually hit our radar. We keep a public research roadmap and people can
Hmm.
vote on it and all that kind of stuff. It was
Hmm.
actually put on in 2023 and I just
Okay.
dragged my feet because this I mean it seems so unsexy to think about
Structures.
L&D
Yeah.
structure, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But as we've gotten into it, it's been fascinating. And talking to all of these leaders about how they're structured and why they're structured that way has been fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the biggest takeaway that I've seen so far is that structure in general is not intentional. Structure is
Mm-hmm.
either passed down, or it's because we've always done it this way, or it's
Mm-hmm.
because there are constraints that are pushing us into this type of structure.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked to a few that have gone through the process of being like, okay, well, what should be centralized and what shouldn't be centralized? And should we be decentralized so that we're closer to the organizations and the needs that we're serving there? But in general, none of this is done intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a big, huge aha
Interesting.
for me.
Interesting.
um,
Yeah.
because we've talked about centralized, decentralized, and federated for so many
Right.
years. You know what I mean? But we
Right.
haven't
Right.
talked about the origins of why we're organized that way.
Why? Yeah.
Or what one structure could give us over another, or why you might, what the goal is of doing
Yeah.
that. So for example, is there one that lends itself more to agility? Is there one that lends itself more to efficiency? And the answer in both of those cases is yes. But what
Okay.
are the aspects of the structure that either drive agility or drive efficiency or drive innovation or whatever it is that you're trying to do?
Right. Well, okay. So if they end up there by happenstance, it sounds like,
Mhm. In a lot
then
of cases, yeah.
in a lot of cases, yeah, then do they have the ability to change? Are you seeing, I mean, if they wanted to change, could they, if they just sort of ended up that way?
Yeah. No. So in general, it's passed down, right? So if
Yeah.
you're a really decentralized organization in general, then it doesn't
Yeah.
make sense, but it's a
Yeah.
centralized L&D department in.
Yeah.
I think where we're seeing some really interesting things though is the degree to which they are a thing. So we've always sort of focused on centralized, decentralized, and federated, and everything in the middle is just federated. If you're a little decentralized and you're a little bit centralized and you're federated, but what we've seen is it is actually there's a gradient between those two. You know what I mean? It's on a
Yeah. Yeah.
scale, and
Yeah.
that federated or hybrid or whatever you want to call it has all kinds of different flavors and stuff. And so the interesting stuff is the very pointed work that some of these organizations are doing to decide what is centralized and what
Okay.
what
Okay.
is decentralized.
Okay. So if they're within a general framework of federated, like what are the dials they can tweak with?
Yeah.
Okay.
What should
Got
you
that.
look at? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. This just sort of popped into my head. I'll never forget this. I was early in my career and we were doing a learning strategy for a very large global chemical company. And we kind of identified all the spend and, what was happening, where the different structures and everything. And we came back to the CEO of this company to deliver the results of this. And it was kind of an efficiency, focused
Yeah.
focused assessment. And he said, because we were recommending a centralized play, and he said, I could do that, but I would be taking away the control of my president of this division and this division and this division. So no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah,
So what you're saying really resonates. It's not like this is L&D's decision
right.
in many cases. So
Yeah, I think it really comes down to regardless, things look different within each structure, but
mhm.
regardless of that, there are influences that variables
Yes,
that you have influence
yes,
over that can move you one way or the other to get what you need
yes.
to get out of it.
That makes a ton of sense. So that research is going to be super valuable
Yeah, it's
for
super
people.
interesting.
Um,
Yeah, I'm sorry I dragged my feet on it. I was like, "Man, another one on centralized, decentralized, and federated," but it's turning out to be really interesting.
Sometimes you got to eat your spinach,
I know you do.
Um, so maybe zooming back up. I mean, this
Okay.
could be doesn't necessarily need to be structures related necessarily, but how do you think L&D organizations most need to change?
Oh, the list is long and varied. Um, okay, so number one thing is I think they need to understand the value that they have.
Mhm.
I have said this before, but I've never seen such a group of people with low self-esteem. Like there's
Mhm.
always sort of this like we got to prove it to the organization that we're valuable.
Yeah, yeah,
What needs to happen is they need to understand the value that they have, and
yeah,
it's been really interesting over this last couple of years watching AI come in and take a lot of the stuff that they were doing and
yeah.
actually sitting back and saying, what happens if the L&D department does go away?
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
What do we give up if that happens? And sort of analyzing that because it's really helped me focus in on the things that they absolutely should be doing. They absolutely should be guiding the skills that the organization should be focusing on. They absolutely should be getting everybody on the same page about what those skills are and how to develop them. They absolutely should be focusing on efficiency and those types of things. And so I think the biggest thing is quit focusing on the individual sort of employee or learner or
Yeah,
course or whatever it is and start thinking more globally about what you're trying to accomplish. Like
yeah.
your remit is this big and most organizations focus on it as if it is this big. And I
Right.
think it hamstrings a lot of organizations a lot of the time.
Right. And I mean, to your question that you've raised on LinkedIn in the last few days,
Yeah,
if you're thinking this big, then if you go away,
no big deal.
tree falls in the woods. Did anyone hear
Exactly.
it? No, that's a good challenge to our industry, Danny. So all right. Well, it wouldn't be a podcast in, fall of 2025 if we didn't have a Gen AI lightning round.
Sure, sure.
Okay, so you have identified about 55 different Gen AI capabilities, maybe more, since the research was published for learning specifically.
Yeah.
Which are the most interesting to you and why?
Yeah. I think the ones that are most interesting to me are the ones that we're calling the unsexy ones. They're
Hmm.
the ones that allow us to do things on the back end that are going
Okay.
to allow us to do really big things to accomplish
Hmm.
the sort of skilling of the workforce.
Hmm.
There are things like analyzing data better or ingesting data better so that we're providing better outcomes or
Okay.
um, funneling information about people's skills into other types of technologies or surfacing things that the organization needs to think about because other
Hmm.
organizations in our industry are already thinking about them. All of these things are hard and most of them are data driven. Um, and they really do feel unsexy. But when you start looking at the types of things that you can do once you get these skills and are able to use these AI capabilities, it's
Hmm.
crazy. It's crazy. We can start doing things that we've never done before instead of just making the things that we've always done more efficient.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Being able to, intuit, infer skills and share that information, so interesting. Um, what change do you most hope to see Gen AI usher into corporate learning? Like, what would you like to
I
see change?
Yeah, I hope it changes our focus. I hope it changes our focus from sort of the doing types of things. I created this course. This many
Hmm.
people took this
Hmm.
course to the being types of things. We now have an organization with the types of skills that we need. And so I think, I think getting some of the stupid work off of our plates and
Hmm.
getting rid of some of those doing types of things will open up space within the L&D department to think bigger
Yeah,
and broader about what their remit is.
awesome, awesome. All right, so it's safe to say, we live in pretty interesting times. And we've discussed how L&D has not been rising to the challenge, and you've laid down the gauntlet for, what you'd like to see. You'd like to see, L&D kind of grow up and claim the mantle. So in this context, what's your, if you're speaking to an L&D leader, what's your number one piece of advice to them?
Yeah, I think my number one piece of advice is to realize that your remit literally is to ensure a skilled workforce. That's your job.
Yep. Love it. Love it. All right, Danny. So thank you so much for being generous with your insights and time today. This has been fun and it's been insightful as always. And I just want to thank you also for your service to the industry. A lot of people, really respect and rely on your point of view and your challenging questions for us. So thank you for that.
Thank you. It was a pleasure
Uh,
being here. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Super fun. So to our guests, if you enjoyed today's episode, you can follow or subscribe to Being Intrepid wherever you get your podcasts. Also a note that I'll be at DevLearn and actually will be podcasting live there. So stop by. I'd love to meet you in person. And as a Being Intrepid listener, as an added incentive, if you haven't registered for DevLearn already, you can use an Intrepid code and get a little discount when you're registering. But hope to see you live there, and hope to see you or virtually connect in the future on future episodes. So that's a wrap. And until next time, keep asking the hard questions, chart your own course, and keep on learning. Thank you.